She's pregnant. Her family's shame. And now she's been sold to the most dangerous man in the city. One terrified young woman, one ruthless mafia boss. A marriage that was never about love, but will become so much more. Her family thought they were solving a problem. They had no idea they were starting a war. Dante Salvatore doesn't just buy a bride. He claims her. Completely. Violently. Desperately. She carries a secret that could destroy everything. A pregnancy with a dangerous history. A night she can never forget. A truth that could get her killed. He knows something is hidden. He just doesn't know what. Yet. One midnight wedding. 2 broken souls. A pregnancy that changes everything. Will she survive the man who bought her? Or will she become the deadliest weapon in his empire? When shame becomes power and a transaction becomes a passion that could burn the entire city down, who really gets saved and who gets destroyed? Her pregnancy brought shame, so her family sold her to the lonely mafia boss. Coming soon. The lunch rush was dying down, steam fogging the kitchen windows of Moretti's, the family restaurant that had been their lifeline for 3 generations. Elena Moretti wiped her hands on her apron, feeling the slight swell of her stomach. Barely visible, but growing. 3 months. 3 months since that night with Luca Corsini that had changed everything. Her father's voice cut through the kitchen noise. Elena, my office, now. The other servers exchanged worried glances. Antonio Moretti didn't call anyone to his office without reason, and that reason was rarely good. The mahogany-paneled room smelled of expensive cigars and old-world disappointment. Her mother, Sophia, stood silently by the window, her back turned, refusing to meet Elena's eyes. That alone told Elena something was terribly wrong. Sit, Antonio commanded. It wasn't a request. Elena remained standing. I'll stand. Her father's jaw clenched, the same jaw she'd inherited, the same stubborn line that marked their shared bloodline. Your condition has brought shame to this family, he said flatly. You understand that, yes? The pregnancy. The secret she'd been desperately trying to hide. Her hand instinctively moved to her stomach. I was attacked, Elena said quietly. It wasn't my fault. Antonio's laugh was cold. Fault, responsibility, these are words that mean nothing now. He slid a thick envelope across the desk. Dante Salvatore has made an offer. For you. The name sent a chill down her spine. Dante Salvatore, mafia underboss. A man whispered about in dark corners, feared even among their own community. I'm not for sale, Elena said, her voice breaking. You're already sold, her father responded. Your debt to this family is paid. My gambling losses, erased. Our restaurant protection, guaranteed. All for you. Sophia finally turned. Tears tracked silently down her cheeks, but she said nothing. Did nothing. The contract looked official. Embossed. Letterhead. Multiple signatures. A marriage arrangement that read more like a business transaction than a human life. Elena's eyes scanned the pages. Dante would provide financial security, a home, protection. In exchange, she would be his wife, bear his children. I won't do it, she whispered. Antonio's hand slammed against the desk. You will. You brought this shame. You will fix it. Traditional families do not tolerate illegitimate children. Elena's voice was razor sharp. Or daughters who speak their mind. Her father's eyes went cold. You will marry Dante Salvatore. The papers are already signed. That evening, Elena found herself locked in her childhood bedroom. Her phone gone, car keys confiscated. Like a prisoner awaiting sentencing. She pressed her hands against her stomach, feeling the tiny life inside her. The baby wasn't just a consequence. The baby was her only truth, her only hope. She thought about Luca Corsini, that violent night, how he'd drugged her, how she'd fought, how she'd survived. The secret of what truly happened that night could get her killed if the wrong people discovered the truth. Dante Salvatore didn't know the full story. No one did, except her. Outside her window, the street lamps flickered to life. Another day ended. Another day closer to a marriage she never wanted. To a man she'd never met. To a life that felt more like a prison sentence than a future. But Elena Moretti was a survivor. And survivors adapt. Whatever came next, she would face it. For herself. For the child growing inside her. Her hand traced the slight curve of her belly. We'll survive this, she whispered. I promise. The darkness of the room seemed to pulse with unspoken secrets, with fear, with a determination that burned bright and fierce. a flame that would not be extinguished no matter how hard the world tried to break her. The morning light sliced through Elena's bedroom like a blade, harsh and unforgiving. She hadn't slept a single minute, her mind racing through every possible escape route. The designer clothes hanging in the closet, pristine tags still attached, felt like a prison uniform. A soft knock interrupted her thoughts. Nico, her brother, entered carrying a breakfast tray. Steam rose from a cappuccino and fresh pastries sat untouched on white china. His eyes were sympathetic but guarded. "You're not going to fight this," he said quietly. It wasn't a question. Elena's laugh was brittle. "Like I have a choice?" Nico set down the tray and leaned against the wall. "Dante Salvatore isn't someone you run from. He killed 3 men with his bare hands last year, just for stepping into his territory without permission. The guys were connected, powerful, and he didn't hesitate." She knew what he wasn't saying. If Dante would do that to connected men, what would he do to her if she tried to escape? At noon, black SUVs rolled up the Moretti family's long driveway. Elena's mother appeared with a garment bag, a designer, dress tailored precisely to her measurements. The message was clear: resistance was futile. She was being packaged and presented like a transaction. The drive to downtown took an hour. Elena watched suburban streets give way to sleek corporate landscapes, her fingers pressed against her still, flat stomach. Her secret felt like a live wire, ready to detonate everything around her. The Salvatore corporate headquarters were marble and glass, a monument to calculated power. Lawyers waited in a conference room that felt more like an execution chamber. Her father sat at the head of the table, his posture rigid, avoiding direct eye contact. At exactly 2 p.m., Dante Salvatore entered. He was larger than she expected. 6'3" of pure, lethal elegance, wrapped in a Tom Ford suit that probably cost more than her family's monthly income. His hands, scarred, strong, moved with surgical precision as he sorted through documents. Winter storm eyes never once looked directly at her. A Mont Blanc pen moved across contract pages. With each signature, Elena felt another piece of her freedom dissolve. Only after every document was signed did Dante finally assess her. His gaze was clinical, assessing her like a piece of strategic inventory. "You're prettier than I expected," he said flatly. "That will make things easier." The words should have felt like an insult. Instead, they felt like a strange kind of mercy. "Tommy," he said to his lieutenant, "take her to the house. Prepare everything as we discussed." Just like that, she was handed off. A transaction completed. A piece moved on some larger chessboard she couldn't comprehend. As Dante turned to leave, already focused on other business, Elena realized something fundamental. She was completely, terrifyingly alone. The SUV ride to her new home was silent. Tommy, a mountain of a man with eyes that missed nothing, occasionally glanced at her in the rearview mirror. Not with curiosity, not with sympathy, just professional assessment. The Salvatore compound wasn't a house, it was a fortress. Wrought iron gates, stone walls, manicured grounds that looked more like a military installation than a home. Guards moved with military precision, weapons barely concealed beneath tailored jackets. When they arrived at the main house, Elena realized her entire world had just been rewritten. No more family restaurant, no more Sunday dinners, no more illusion of control. She was property now, Dante Salvatore's property. And something inside her, something wild and unbreakable, began to sharpen itself against this new reality. They might have bought her, but they hadn't broken her. Not yet. Not ever. The black Mercedes glided through Manhattan's late afternoon traffic, its tinted windows revealing nothing of the drama contained within. Tommy, Dante's stone-faced driver, kept his eyes fixed on the road while Elena stared out the window, her hand unconsciously pressed against her still flat stomach. She hadn't spoken a word since leaving her family's restaurant. The silence felt like a physical weight, heavier than the designer luggage in the trunk, heavier than the contract that had just sealed her fate. A bride sold, not married, not joined, sold, like property, like something to be traded. The Salvatore penthouse loomed ahead, a glass and steel fortress rising 20 stories above the city. Modern, cold, perfect reflection of the man who owned it, owned her. Mrs. Chen greeted her with professional efficiency, her movements precise as she guided Elena through marble hallways. "Mr. Salvatore will be home late. Your suite is prepared." The room was beautiful, too beautiful, cream and dove gray with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Her few personal items were already unpacked: photographs, a small silver frame, a worn leather journal. Someone had taken care with the arrangement. someone who wanted her to feel something. Comfortable. Controlled. She walked to the walk-in closet. Designer labels hung in perfect rows. Dresses, suits, lingerie. Everything chosen by someone who knew her size or her style, but not her. Everything selected without her input. Another layer of ownership. The evening stretched long and silent. Elena changed into a simple black dress, choosing something understated. Not a statement. Not a surrender. Just survival. Exactly at 8, the apartment transformed. Heavy footsteps. The distinct sound of a weapon being placed on a surface. Keys dropped, a jacket sliding off shoulders. Dante Salvatore had arrived. He entered the dining room looking like death dressed in Tom Ford. Blood speckled his pristine white collar. He didn't even attempt to hide it, didn't care, didn't apologize. "Sit," he said. Not a request. The dinner was perfect, professionally prepared, completely tasteless. Elena waited until the staff cleared the last course before speaking. "What exactly do you expect from me?" Dante's winter storm eyes met hers. Clinical, calculating. Publicly, you'll be the devoted wife, supportive, elegant. You'll attend family functions, bear my air. In private, you'll stay out of my way. And intimacy? The words felt like rocks in her throat. A dark laugh escaped him, hollow, dangerous. That's not part of our arrangement. Something inside Elena hardened. She'd been sold, used, traded, but she wasn't broken, never broken. Later, standing on the penthouse's massive balcony, 20 stories above the Manhattan streets, Elena gazed down. One step, one moment, freedom. But her hand instinctively covered her stomach. Not just her life anymore, never just her life again. She would survive. For the baby. For herself. Dante Salvatore might have bought her, but he would never own her soul. The city lights flickered below, witnesses to a transaction older than civilization. A woman, a price, a promise of survival. Her fingers traced the edge of the balcony. Cold metal, hard boundary. Tomorrow would be another day in her new world. World of glass and steel, of blood and secrets, of survival. She would learn its rules. She would master its game. And nobody, not her family, not Dante, not the entire criminal underworld, would break her. Her choice, her life, her survival. The night stretched before her, pregnant with possibility, with danger, with hope. The bus station fluorescents flickered, casting harsh shadows across Elena's determined face. Her fingers clutched the ticket to Canada, her lifeline, her escape. $300 cash, hidden in her shoe, represented months of careful saving from waitressing tips. She'd planned this moment meticulously, waiting for the perfect opportunity to slip past Dante Salvatore's guards. Her heart raced as she approached the ticket counter. Freedom was so close she could almost taste it. One more transaction, one more signature, and she'd be gone from this nightmare-arranged marriage, this life she never chose. "One ticket to Vancouver," she said, her voice surprisingly steady. But something felt wrong. The atmosphere shifted. Too quiet, too still. Before she could process the sensation, massive hands gripped her shoulders. Not rough, but impossibly firm. The scent of expensive cologne and something darker, leather, maybe gunpowder, surrounded her. Dante Salvatore. He dismissed his men with a simple gesture, a wave so precise it looked choreographed. Then he turned those winter storm eyes directly on her. Rain pelted the bus station's concrete, creating a metallic rhythm. Water dripped from Dante's immaculate Armani suit, making him look like some dark angel emerging from a storm. "There is nowhere you can run that I won't find you, Elena," he said, each word carved from ice. "No door I won't break down. No country far enough. You signed your name next to mine. In my world, that's more binding than blood." She should have been terrified. But something in his voice, a hint of something almost vulnerable, made her stand her ground. "I didn't sign up for this," she whispered. "Being sold like property. Being treated like—" His hand moved impossibly fast, not touching her throat, but close enough that she felt its heat, close enough to feel both threat and restraint. "What you signed was a contract that saves your family from financial ruin," Dante said coldly. "What you signed was protection. What you signed was survival." Then, unexpectedly, he did something that shattered her entire perception. He removed his expensive jacket, probably worth more than everything she owned, and draped it around her shaking shoulders. "You're carrying my air," he said softly. "You're exhausted, and you're going to get sick standing here in the rain." The jacket was warm. It smelled like him. Cedar, expensive cologne, a hint of something metallic she didn't want to identify. Protection and danger wrapped into one piece of fabric. The ride back to the penthouse was silent. Elena clutched his jacket around her, suddenly aware of how small she was compared to this man who could apparently track her across continents, who could dismiss armed men with a gesture, who could sound both ruthless and tender in the same breath. When they arrived, instead of rage or violence, Dante simply looked at her. "Rest," he ordered. "You've exhausted yourself. And the baby." He didn't touch her, didn't restrain her, just stood outside her door like a guardian or a jailer. Elena realized with a clarity that made her stomach drop that escape was no longer an option, not because of physical barriers, but because Dante Salvatore had already mapped every possible route, anticipated every potential move. She was utterly, completely caught. The jacket still wrapped around her shoulders smelled of him, a reminder that in this moment she belonged to a world far more complex and dangerous than she'd ever imagined. And somewhere between terror and an emotion she refused to name, Elena understood. This was only the beginning. The morning light filtered through heavy silk curtains, casting a pearlescent glow on the Vera Wang wedding dress hanging like a ghostly promise. Mrs. Chen moved with quiet efficiency, her weathered hands smoothing invisible wrinkles from the pristine white fabric. Elena stood motionless, her fingers tracing the delicate beadwork, feeling more like a sacrificial lamb than a bride. St. Augustine's church echoed with a cold emptiness that matched the emptiness in Elena's chest. The ceremony was a performance, a transaction wrapped in sacred ritual. Her father's hand gripped hers, too tightly, as he walked her down the aisle, a final display of ownership before transferring her to Dante Salvatore. Dante stood like a marble statue in a perfectly tailored Tom Ford suit, his winter storm eyes never leaving her. She could feel the weight of his gaze, assessing, calculating, already measuring her worth. Behind him, Don Salvatore watched with predatory intensity, his fingers drumming against the ornate wooden armrest like a countdown to judgment. The priest's words became a distant murmur. Elena caught fragments. Honor and obey, traditional vows that felt like chains. When Dante slipped the ring on her finger, his touch was clinical, professional. No hint of the passion or tenderness a bride might hope for. At the Salvatore compound's reception, the true nature of her marriage became brutally clear. Don Salvatore cornered Dante near the massive marble fireplace, his voice low but razor-sharp. "1 year," he said. "Prove your worth. Produce an heir, or leadership goes to Marcus. Family legacy demands strength, not just violence." Dante's jaw clenched, a micro-movement most would miss. But Elena saw it, the tension vibrating beneath his perfectly controlled exterior. She realized this marriage was about more than her. She was a strategic move, a potential key to power. The wedding suite was a study in controlled luxury. Cream silk sheets, crystal decanters of expensive scotch, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking manicured grounds that looked more like a fortress than a home. Elena waited, expecting the traditional consummation, the final seal on their transaction. Instead, Dante showed her to a separate bedroom. "This will be your room," he said, his voice smooth as polished steel. She couldn't help the challenge in her voice. "What kind of man buys a bride and doesn't claim her?" Something dangerous flickered in his eyes. His hand moved near her throat, not touching, but close enough that she could feel the heat radiating from his skin, close enough to feel the potential for violence. "The kind who knows exactly what these hands are capable of doing," he said softly. "The kind keeping you alive by keeping my distance." The implication hung between them. These hands had killed. These hands could destroy. And right now, these hands were choosing restraint. Elena heard him later that night, pacing his adjacent room like a caged predator, each measured step a testament to the violence barely contained beneath his surface. She lay awake in silk sheets that felt more like a shroud, understanding that they were both trapped, her by circumstances, him by the demons of his past. Outside her window, the Salvatore compound sprawled like a kingdom built on secrets and blood. Manicured gardens and expensive sculptures couldn't hide the fundamental truth. This was a world of transaction, of power, of survival. Her hand drifted to her still, flat stomach. The child growing inside her was both her vulnerability and her weapon. A secret that could destroy everything, or become her salvation. Dante continued pacing. Elena closed her eyes. The game had only just begun. The penthouse felt like a gilded cage, its marble floors and crystal chandeliers a stark contrast to the invisible bars surrounding Elena. She wandered through the expansive rooms, her fingers trailing along silk-covered furniture, feeling simultaneously luxurious and trapped. Dante had left before dawn, his departure marked by the soft click of expensive Italian leather shoes against hardwood and the muted rumble of a high-end SUV pulling away. Mrs. Chen, the housekeeper, moved silently through the space, her movements precise and practiced. "Mr. Salvatore prefers everything in order," she murmured, almost to herself. Her eyes flickered briefly to Elena's stomach, then away. 3 years, no woman here, not since... She stopped mid-sentence, catching herself. The unfinished statement hung in the air like a ghost, another secret in a house built on them. Elena's morning sickness hit without warning. One moment she was examining a collection of intricate miniature figurines in Dante's locked study, glimpsed through a cracked door before Mrs. Chen had quietly closed it, and the next she was racing toward the nearest bathroom. The tile was cold against her cheek, waves of nausea rolled through her, merciless and unrelenting. She hadn't asked to be here, hadn't asked, to be sold like property, traded to settle her father's gambling debts. Hadn't asked for any of this. When the retching finally subsided, she heard footsteps, heavy, deliberate. Dante appeared in the doorway, his Tom Ford suit immaculate, despite what looked like a morning of brutal negotiations. His winter storm eyes swept over her, clinical yet not entirely without concern. "Dr. Russo," he said into his phone, "come to the penthouse. Now." His hands, which she'd seen crush a man's windpipe without hesitation, now supported her with unexpected gentleness. He lifted her, carried her to the bedroom, his touch professional, but not unkind. Dr. Russo arrived within the hour, a discreet professional who examined Elena with efficiency. "The pregnancy is progressing normally," he announced. "Some women experience more intense morning sickness. I'll prescribe something to help." Dante nodded, his attention split between the doctor's report and something on his phone, likely another business transaction that would end someone's world. That evening, he appeared with ginger tea. The gesture was so unexpected that Elena stared, momentarily speechless. "It helps with nausea," he said, setting the steaming mug down. Mrs. Chen recommended it. Their conversation drifted to something almost normal. Baby names. Elena mentioned she liked traditional Italian names. Dante suggested Alessandra for a girl, his voice soft, almost tender. But tenderness was fleeting. Within moments, invisible walls reconstructed themselves. He retreated, becoming the ruthless underboss once more. Later that night, Elena discovered something that punctured her growing fear. The kitchen was stocked with precisely her pregnancy cravings. Pickles, strange fruit combinations, specific brands of crackers. Someone had researched. Someone had paid attention. At 3 a.m, she found Dante asleep in a chair outside her bedroom. His suit jacket was draped over him, his normally sharp features softened in sleep. For the first time, she saw something vulnerable, a man who killed without hesitation, yet who had stayed to ensure her safety. His hand was positioned near his ankle, where she knew he kept a weapon. Even in sleep, he was ready, protective. The contradiction of Dante Salvatore was becoming clearer, a man of extreme violence, capable of unprecedented gentleness. A predator who could transform into a guardian in a heartbeat. As dawn approached, Elena realized something fundamental was shifting. This wasn't just a transaction anymore. This was becoming something else entirely. Something dangerous. Something profound. 3 days of marriage felt like 3 years of captivity. Elena's fingers worked the delicate lockpick, her breath catching each time she heard a distant sound. Dante's study was forbidden territory, a sacred space she'd been explicitly warned never to enter. The mahogany desk gleamed under soft light. Leather-bound ledgers sat in precise stacks. Financial. Records revealed intricate networks of transactions, territory boundaries marked in red ink across maps that looked more like battleground strategies than business documents. She shouldn't be here, but curiosity burned hotter than fear. A leather-bound photo album caught her eye. Curiosity pulled her closer. The first pages revealed a younger Dante, softer, almost unrecognizable, smiling beside a beautiful girl with dark curls and eyes that matched his. Inscriptions in elegant script. Isabella and Dante, summer, tweensy 13. The photographs progressed. Isabella at graduation, Isabella and Dante at a family gathering. Her smile was radiant, her connection with her brother evident in every shared glance. But then the images stopped abruptly 5 years ago. Her fingers traced the last photograph. Something dark lurked behind Isabella's smile, a vulnerability Dante's current self would never allow. "What are you doing?" The arctic chill of Dante's voice froze her in place, caught, exposed. But when he saw which album she held, something shifted. His fury didn't explode. Instead, a profound sadness replaced his rage. He went completely still, his eyes distant. "Out," he said quietly. Not a shout, not a threat, just a broken whisper. That night, Dante didn't come home. Tommy arrived near midnight, checking on her with professional concern. "Mr. Salvatore won't be returning," he said, his voice carefully neutral. "Is everything okay?" Elena asked. A flicker of something, pain maybe, crossed Tommy's face. "The Corsinis killed his sister, Marco Corsini specifically, 5 years ago." The name Marco sent ice through her veins. Luca's brother, the man who now wanted revenge. Her secret felt suddenly heavy, crushing. Dawn broke with Dante's return. He was drunk, the first time she'd seen him anything less than perfectly controlled. He stumbled, expensive Italian leather shoes scuffed, suit wrinkled. "Isabella," he mumbled, mistaking her for someone else. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry I didn't protect you." Elena helped him to bed, her hands gentle despite the risk of discovery. His vulnerability was a weapon more dangerous than his usual cold precision. In that moment, she saw beneath the monster a broken man carrying grief that threatened to consume him. The photographs made sense now, the sudden stop of memories, the pain hidden behind calculated violence. Dante's hand gripped her wrist, not with threat, but with desperate connection. "I failed her," he whispered. "I failed my sister." Elena understood then that they were both survivors, both carrying secrets, both shaped by violence they didn't choose. As morning light filtered through heavy curtains, she realized the depths of damage they both carried. Dante wasn't just a monster. He was a man destroyed and rebuilt by loss. And she was no longer just a transaction. She was becoming something more. Her hand unconsciously moved to her stomach. The child growing inside her would know a different story. A story of survival, of unexpected love emerging from darkness. Dante's breathing steadied. For the first time since their marriage, something like peace settled between them. Not love, not yet, but something more complex, a mutual understanding forged in shared pain. The secrets between them weren't finished. They were just beginning. The study was a sanctuary of controlled chaos. Moonlight sliced through heavy velvet curtains, illuminating an elaborate table where miniature warriors stood frozen in eternal battle. Elena's bare feet made no sound on the polished hardwood as she approached, curiosity overriding her usual caution. Dante sat hunched over the table, his massive frame surprisingly delicate, as he held a paintbrush, thinner than a pencil. The muscles of his forearm flexed with each precise movement, transforming a tiny metal soldier from a raw casting to a detailed warrior. The Battle of Thermopylae spread before him. Hundreds of miniatures representing the legendary Spartans stand against overwhelming Persian forces. "Seriously!" the words escaped before she could stop them. "You're playing with toy soldiers at 3 a.m. Dante didn't startle, didn't even look up. His hand continued its meticulous work, painting the tiniest red stripe of blood along a miniature shield. "These aren't toys, Elena. They're memories." The vulnerability in his voice made her pause. She'd seen Dante break fingers without blinking, negotiate death contracts over breakfast, command men who would die at a single gesture. Yet here he was, creating art with the same hands that could destroy entire families. 2 years, he said softly, still focused on the miniature. 2 years in the Corsini basement. Every piece I paint is a day I survived. His brush moved with surgical precision, detailing the muscles of a Spartan warrior. Each stroke seemed to carry a weight far heavier than paint and metal. Elena found herself moving closer, drawn by something she couldn't explain. "I was 17, Dante continued, his voice distant. "Captured during a territorial dispute. They didn't want information. They wanted to break me. Torture isn't about pain, it's about destroying hope." A tiny drop of deep crimson, blood, appeared on the miniature's bronze armor. Elena realized he was recreating not just a battle, but a moment of survival. "How did you survive?" The question slipped out, more gentle than she intended. Dante finally looked up. His eyes, usually glacial and dangerous, held something unexpected. Memory, pain, resilience. By refusing to be broken, by planning, by understanding that survival is its own form of victory. He began explaining the Battle of Thermopylae, how 300 Spartan warriors held a narrow mountain pass against tens of thousands of Persian soldiers. How they knew they would die, but chose to fight anyway. How their sacrifice became legendary. 300 men, Dante said, knowing they would never return home, knowing each breath could be their last, but choosing honor over surrender. Elena saw him differently in that moment, not just a monster, not just a killer, but a survivor who had transformed trauma into something beautiful. Her exhaustion crashed over her suddenly. Dante noticed immediately his hand, the same hand that had just been painting delicate battle scenes, reaching out to touch her face. His fingers were calloused, warm. For a moment, they hovered just above her skin. Then he pulled back as if touching her burned him. "Rest," he commanded. But there was something new in his voice, not just an order, but a hint of concern. As she turned to leave, she caught another glimpse of the miniature battlefield. Hundreds of tiny warriors, each one representing a moment of impossible survival, each one a testament to refusing to be conquered, just like her. The first hint of dawn was breaking as Elena returned to her room. Something had shifted between them. Not trust, not yet, but understanding. A recognition that beneath the violence, beneath the transactions and arranged marriages, there were human beings fighting to survive. Her hand dropped to her stomach, to the child who would inherit this complicated world. A world of danger and beauty, of brutality and unexpected tenderness. A world where even toy soldiers could tell stories of survival.